Hello and welcome to Old School Garage. My name is Nicholas and today I'm going to be talking about machines. Now I'm not going to be talking about these machines as most of you have already seen. If you are new to the channel, this will be not about the trucks, although I do most of my content on my channel is about the trucks and my Imperial. But this video is going to be slightly different. As I mentioned in the previous video that I posted, this is going to be about the machinery that I've collected, most of which is not in working order currently. But the plan is to get it there. And so I'm going to be making video series on each machine and going into getting it up and running and then the issues that I encounter along the way. Now, you may be wondering, hey, I didn't sign up to this channel to watch machining. Well, hang with me for a second because I believe it's kind of important in terms of restoring this kind of equipment. Reason being is there are not parts made for this. There are not parts made for a lot of this stuff anymore. Even to the point of the big cam engines, you know, and how popular they were, there's still a ton of parts that are not available for them. Not even getting into things like the small cam or anything like that. But I believe fabrication is important and it's a very broad field. There's many areas you can go into. And so just touching little parts of that to help and aid in the assistance or give some assistance of restoring these trucks is very important. So I'm going to go into a little bit of that. I'm not going to be doing any work in this video. It's going to be solely introducing the machines and kind of the future plans for the channel and the changes coming in that direction. So let's get to it. Now, before I get started with any of this, let me preface this with some of this machinery is in a good condition in terms of it could be used right now. It's just not where I would like it to be before I start using it. Now, I know there's a lot of people that, oh, just use the machines and, you know, but I'd like to protect the investment first of all, and then number two, I'd like to protect the longevity of the machine. Just because I want to jump right into things, you know, I could hurt things that are long-term effects like screwing up the ways or anything like that. So that's why machines get worn out in the first place. Obviously use wears them out, but not taking care of your machines and not cleaning them when you need to is a big contributor to a machine needing to be scrapped. So I'm trying to avoid that. But this guy, this is a number 2 model CSM Kearney Trecker No. For the most part is intact. It's missing the dial indicator up here, but that stuff's pretty easy to come by. It's not like it's a very difficult part to find. All of the power feed levers are moving correctly. Everything is engaging, at least I believe it's correct. It feels correct. Won't know that until I've actually hooked power up to the machine and have it running. It is a 12 by like 64, 65 inch table. So it's a good size. It's a good working size for basic projects, nothing crazy big and nothing too small. It is 20 horsepower and it can spin up to 1200 RPM on the spindle. So it's a good speed for carbide tooling. Now that is one thing that's cool about this machine because it is a CSM. That means it has a flywheel up in here. And the purpose of that was to increase your feed rate capabilities with carbide tooling because brazed carbide tooling was just coming out in the 50s and 60s when this was first really produced. So that was a whole new world that machinists were being opened up to at the time was carbide tooling. Obviously now it's kind of a mainstay and high-speed steel tooling is kind of to the wayside. But you know, this was all new at the time. So let me do a little bit of a walk around so you can see some of this stuff because there is some cool things to be seen on this. And then we'll talk a little bit about what needs to be done to it. Now you can see it's in really good condition here, but she's just a little dirty. The ways do have some grooving, as you can see there, but nothing major. We don't know yet on accuracy because I haven't gotten to that point. But you can see there are some seals coming apart that need to be addressed. I want to go through these motors, make sure that they're greased correctly because if they fail, that would be a serious problem. That's pretty difficult to find. So the main drive motor itself is in pretty good condition. As you can see in here, it is a 20 horse. So it's plenty for what I need. Now, just running through the gears, everything sounds correct. It doesn't sound like there's any weird grabbing. It's obviously not running currently, but we won't know until we get it actually running to know if we're missing any gears, if any are chipped or not. I haven't pulled the filter yet. Now it is an Allen Bradley panel, so most everything is Allen Bradley in here, so I'm sure I could replace it with the exact components, but nothing seems to be burned. Nothing seems to be, out of place that's weird. So we shouldn't have any issues. I'll still go through it one more time to make sure there's nothing crazy, rotted or broken down. But everything looks intact on this machine. There's nothing that's out of place really with it, except obviously this guy, and then the quill lock for your travel up and down on the quill. You can see it's cracked there. I've already got a new one of these. I'll be replacing it, and then I'll probably be showing a weld repair on this, and we'll include some of that. That'll be kind of cool. But obviously there's a 10-inch vise on it. It's kind of hard to show the scale of things on video because stuff like that is not translated well, but you can see she's pretty dirty. She was never really truly cleaned. So we'll be going through all that and cleaning the ways off, adjusting the wipes so that they're adjusted correctly and actually clean the machine, the ways as everything's moving. Everything moves fine in terms of the ways, but you can see they're nasty, so we need to go through that. But it's just basic stuff like that. It's all just basic. There's nothing crazy that needs to be done to this machine. So now let's talk about the Porter Cable G8 belt sander. All right, now this is a Porter Cable G8 belt sander. Now it's an 8-inch belt by 107 inches, around that way. And this is a G8A. Now the reason it's an A is it has this big angle plate here that you can tilt to a correct angle, hence A. There was a different model that had a sliding table that you could use wheels, like hand wheels, like a mill, to face material correctly, but it would be done with the belt sander instead of a mill. So and the effort was to save time. You can see it does have a coolant tray at the bottom. Most of them would have simply come with just this base right here. This coolant tray obviously needs to be rebuilt. It's seen better days, but the main machine itself is intact. I do need to rebuild this coolant tube that they made. It sprays across everything instead of just the belt, and I'd like it just to spray on top of the belt and not everything. So it is a 5-horse motor. And then it's got like a standard coolant pump on the back of it. But I'll do a little walk around and you can see the rest of this. I can't wait to get this guy going. It needs to come apart fully again and then fully painted so that I'm stopping any future rust, because I don't want this to rust since it will be getting hit with coolant. So let's take a look at the inside and kind of what needs to be done there. All right, so you can see it here. The box in here needs to be rebuilt, mainly the mesh element on the back of it, little perforated metal. I think it's aluminum, which just slowly corroded with the steel. The base itself is fine. It does need to be there needs to be a plate put in right underneath the actual base of the machine, simply to repair some rust. And the tank itself is intact. Now what was cool about this machine specifically is that it was used in a glass factory, so it was not experiencing any aluminum oxide or steel debris from the sanding. So it was very clean inside as compared to most belt sanders. You can see the door is just sheet metal, still really intact. The hinges are intact. There's the big emblem. You can see my hand. And then I need to go through the motor still. But everything's moving. Nothing is like broken on it. There's not really much else to do on it except repair rust. That is the main issue with this. So this will be a really good tool to have for deburring material, filing stuff down or sanding stuff down and getting things shaped correctly. But definitely an old piece of machinery. Kind of wish they still made it. But the Porter Cable doesn't recognize this stuff anymore. So let's get started on the next machine. Now this guy is a Brown & Sharpe No. 2B surface grinder. It is, for the most part, intact. There's not a whole lot missing, a couple oil caps here and there, but not every part is on it right now. But the bones of this machine are really good. There's not a whole lot wrong with it. It appears that there's some grinding dust on the ways, and that definitely needs to be addressed. But for the most part, everything is working correctly. There's no crazy slack or backlash and everything. Everything functions as it should. I do obviously have a VFD here, and I plan to modify this over onto a VFD so that I can control the RPM of the spindle a little bit better. It is a 1.25 horsepower motor, so it's pretty beefy, but this whole thing needs to be gone through. Just everything taken apart, inspected, make sure it's in good working order. It could use some new paint as it's, flaking off everywhere. Everything is in great condition in terms of the parts are here. I have this label up here. Everything is really smooth for what it is. Probably need to go into the gearbox and address some things in there. It probably needs to be re-lubricated and cleaned and everything. But again, it's an old machine. Probably has lead paint in here. So what's cool is it's an oil bath motor in terms of the bearings. So there's no grease. I don't have to pull the bearings apart and completely clean them out. That's a lot easier to address in this condition. So I don't have the auto advancing feature for this axis, but someday I might add that. It's not really a concern right now. But overall, really solid machine, and I really can't wait to get started on this guy because I like surface grinders. All right, now this guy is a WMW Niles DWLZ500. So, as you can see, she is quite rusty. Thing has been dragged up from the bottom of the ocean. Got a lot of issues on this to address. Pretty much everything is stuck. It's all moving, but it doesn't like to move. Cross slide is moving, but extremely difficult. This guy is pretty much stuck. Takes a lot to get it moving. The headstock is moving. So at least the internals of the lathe are perfectly intact. But a lot of this needs to be addressed up here and gone through, again, all frozen. All right, now the cool thing about this lathe is it is a standard and metric lathe, which means I can turn in standard and metric movements. It also is, obviously you can see here, I have a power feed on the carriage so that I can do pretty much any feed rate I want. So it is a 500 mil swing, and then it's about 1500 mil between centers. Now that's approximately, I think it's like 21-inch swing up here, and it is a 30 horse motor, and it can spin up to 1800 RPM. Now I don't foresee myself spinning at that speed for anything big, but it is nice to have a lathe that can spin faster for polishing, and then getting into weird areas of turning. So as I've mentioned, it is, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this, but again, the bones are here, except for the ways. The only thing I don't know about yet are these ways and what the condition's gonna turn out to be with these. There are spots that are really good condition, and then there are some that obviously saw more weather. Now the reason this nice of a lathe, if you wanna call it that, is rusty, is the gentleman that I got it from was storing the machine in a warehouse, in an outsourced warehouse, let me say that. And the person was saying that they were maintaining the machine and all the other machines, but they were in fact not, and the doors of the warehouse were left open, and this got snowed and rained on. So the gentleman I got it from was of course very upset about this, but he was of course stuck with a lathe like this. So hopefully I can bring it back because it was in great condition when he first got it, but here we are. So, you know, steps forward, I need to address the rust, I need to get everything moving. The cross slide needs to come apart, the full carriage probably needs to come apart, although everything inside seems to be moving correctly. But my motor drive controls, they're all moving, they're kind of rough, but they're at least moving. My manual drive and my lead screw controls, again, they're moving, just things are not, you know, working perfect. There's some things that need to be addressed in that area. So again, the electronics, I have no clue. I've got into some of the control wiring and it seems that some of it's been cut as well as the relays have been pulled. So I have to address that as well. It is a 550 volt unit. So I don't have 550 volt because this isn't Canada. But I do have 480. So I'm gonna have to do some tricks there, and we'll get into that, of wiring the motor correctly so that we don't have any issues, and then getting it to a point where we can truly use it to as much potential as we can take it. Now, this is a German machine. WMW, I believe, was a German company or had German contracts and stuff like that. So this was made in East Germany in '86. So this technically you could say is a Soviet machine, which is kind of cool. The one issue with that is there's a lot of stuff that's written in German, and I may look German, but I don't read it. So there's some things that I'm not going to be able to figure out unless I translate it. But mainly, you know, everything is just written in normal machinery language, which is really easy. But when it comes to electrical diagrams and stuff like that, it's a lot of translating. Now, another issue with that is these tags that tell you what each function is, and mainly the threading charts. I'm missing one threading chart, which is a huge problem. But the main issue with that comes down to, because it's a German machine, it is very difficult to find information on. So I am in a huge need of some help in terms of, I need pictures of every tag because a lot of them are broken down. So let me show you some of that. So some of the tags are intact, like they're not completely rotted, like this guy. But then some of them are, you know, a little bit worse. Some of them, again, you could still read, and some just worn away. So it's pretty hit and miss. Here is your swing. So you can see there's some stuff that is just did not get abused at all by the weather. And then there's other stuff that's just, look at that, that is just crazy clean. Then over here, so here's the threading charts. I believe the standard one was here, and then the metric guy was here. And I can barely see the metric guy. I might try to pull this up to try and get the numbers off of it, but if I can find someone that has a similar lathe, it'd be really nice because I could just basically copy it. There's some stuff that I know is going to be pretty hard to replace, and it's just going to be finding a creative solution around it. I'm not going to get everything original, but it seems to be in pretty good shape in terms of there's no chipped edges on the lead screw. The ways, again, they do look terrible, but I've gone ahead and just simply scraped, not like precision scraped, I'm talking just scraping the rust off, and you can see they're not too terrible. So I might be able to salvage this without having to have the ways ground, but again, I won't know that until I have the lathe actually operational. Now, one big issue is the tailstock quill is bound up in it. I can't get it out. I've already gone ahead and pulled everything apart and have tried pounding it through, and I can't get it that way, so I'm probably gonna have to hit it with heat, even though I don't want to do that. It is not coming out. So if push comes to shove, I'll put it on the press and we'll go that direction, but stuff starts to break usually at that point if it's not set up perfectly in the press. So I'm trying to avoid that if I can. Now, the electrical panel back here is intact inside. A lot of it's still in good working condition, appears to be, mainly the relay logic appears to be in good condition, but I'm gonna have to go through all of it. So this machine has a ton of work. If you ever restored a machine and, you know, it's probably not been in this bad of condition, but yeah, I've definitely got my work cut out for me on this one. So I'd like to return it to the tan. The tan seems to be the original color, with like a beige primer underneath that, or possibly a lighter gray one. I don't think the green is original. I've seen some of these that were tan, but I don't know like the specific designation of it. But if anyone has any information on this lathe, it's a DWLZ500, it's not a DLZ500. If anyone has any information on this lathe, please let me know in the comments. Obviously I'm American, so a lot of the access to this information is not readily available because most of it is still in Germany. So if anybody has any info on this, what the W and the DWLZ means, I would love to know. So ton of work to go on this, and I'll obviously be showing a lot of it. Probably the first thing will be the tailstock, and then I'll start to address everything else. Usually I would avoid wire wheeling things, as wire wheeling likes to deburr stuff and sometimes break stuff down over time. But I'm gonna have to hit this with everything I've got, kind of a thing. If you have any solutions to getting the rust off of the ways that are like non-abrasive or anything like that, I'm not trying to get into crazy chemicals, as that generally creates a mess, and it will take too long. Please let me know, like if you've had experience with dry ice blasting on rust, how well it does on stuff like that. I want to avoid soda blasting or anything like that, as first of all it'd create a mess in here, but as well as I don't know how much damage that would do to the ways. But if that is the only thing I have left as an option, I may have to go forward with something like that. So yeah, it's a cool lathe, but we're a ways away from it actually working in working condition. So let's get, we're dragging this video out, let's get on to the next machines. So moving away from manual machining and stuff like that, this is my DeltaWeld 451, and I have a 22A wire feeder on top of it. This is a 3-phase machine, and this will probably end up being used on the 71 frame because of it being so split and then all the issues there. But anything like structural welding, anything like that, this is great because it's a lot easier to lay down wire with a MIG gun instead of just TIG welding everything, as TIG welding is very slow. And then that is my 330 ABP. Now I've already done a video on that. I rehabbed the fan motor on it. I'm probably gonna have to put a new relay in it at some point. But I'm probably gonna film a video on that, but any welding I'm doing is really with these two machines. They're both transformer machines. I don't have any inverter machines except for this Spectrum, Spectrum 2050 Miller down here. That's a good machine as well, but the transformer machines are very reliable. I definitely recommend grabbing as many of these as you can before they're gone because they have pretty much faded away. The only downside to them is they take a lot of power, but they also put out a lot of power very reliably. So this guy can weld up to, I think it's basically 420 amps at 100% duty cycle, and then that guy's around 300 at 100% duty cycle. So they're beefy machines. and very useful. They have their own place. So now let's take a look at the lathe that's been behind me in so many videos that some people have asked about, and what needs to be done with that guy. All right, now this guy is my Monarch Series 61. This was made in 1960. But I got this guy from a local glass manufacturing company. They were getting rid of it. So I went ahead and made an offer and went through that whole process, and here we are. So there's a few issues with it, but again, like the other machines, I'm starting to sound like a broken record. This has really good bones. This one's in really good shape. Now the benefit of this guy is it was mainly maintained with grease on the ways. So a lot of this where it looks like rust, there is some rust on it, but a lot of it is actually just grease that's got some rust in it. So it's a lot easier just to scrape off, and it's very fine. Now this is a 20-inch lathe. It's marketed by Monarch as a tool room lathe. This is the 20-inch model, but it actually has a 22.5-inch swing. There were a couple actual swing differences, or models that you could get. There was one with a 26.5 and just a bunch of different options there, but this is the 22.5, and then it is a 72-inch between centers. So that's basically probably just over 6 feet if you really want to talk about the actual usable space on it, what you could really squeeze out of it. So it's got a really good bed length. It's bigger than the Niles in terms of the bed length, but it's a 20 horse motor, it's not a 30, and it is only a standard machine. Now you can get change gears and go through that whole mess and put in a new change gear to turn in metric, but I don't really have a need for that. If I do have a need for that, it would be for turning the lead screw down on the Niles or making a new lead screw in general, and then turning it on this machine and then turning new half nuts as well. That would probably be the only thing I could think of in metric, but the option is there if it ever comes down to it. So I obviously have the headstock cover off, and I'll show you that in a second, but everything's intact in there. The carriage is in great condition. It moves nice and easy, even this dirty, but I want to take this completely apart and then get it back down to the bare bones, and I really want to make sure that there's nothing underneath the carriageways, because if there's something under the carriageways and they start to eat it away, I would be taking this perfectly good machine, basically throwing it down the barrel. I can see a little bit of wear on this end, which is normal, but it doesn't look like anything major. I truly won't know how much taper is in the machine until I do a bar test and have everything set up and leveled, which I'll be showing all that in that full process. So mainly everything here is moving. The lead screw engagement knobs, everything needs to be kind of adjusted. It's all kind of loose and sloppy. Nothing really is perfect. So taking it all apart, taking the carriage apart, dropping this down, removing the lead screw and everything like that will give me good access in here as well, but it'll give me a good chance to go through everything and make sure everything is working correctly. Now this lathe has been sitting for probably close to, I want to say 20 years. So, and it was in a glass manufacturing plant, which glass is very, very brutal when it comes to wearing metal away, which is again another reason I want to get under here, and I want to confirm that there's nothing under there. Now there are some things that I need to go through and I need to fix mainly before this whole thing is up and running, and I've talked about the ways it need to be, scraped and all that, but basically there's an apron control right here, and then there's an apron, or not an apron support, but a lead screw and a guide rod support that basically floats along. So if the carriage is down here, the support will sit here, and this is all automatic control. And then when this guy moves down this way, all the way down that way, there's a support down here as well. This support was froze up and not broken, but it needed to be pulled apart and cleaned. But the apron control, which is down on this end, is completely shattered apart. It was backed into by a forklift and broke. And then this guy is also shattered. So I have to repair that. They are cast iron. I could probably remake them, and I might do that if it comes down to it, but I don't want to. I'll be doing some cast iron welding videos and going through all that. But if you look here, you can see I've already scraped here and cleaned, got all the grease off and all the rust. And you can see it's very clean underneath. Let me pull you in closer here. Now you can see there's a tiny little chip there, but no real damage as we move down. You can see the carriage is intact. That's the motor. I'm going to be going through that whole thing before I put it back in. We've got our electric controls, our forward and reverse contactors, our step-down transformer for our coolant. Now the threading chart is really intact. No issues there, just need some new paint. I'll be doing repainting on a lot of the removable stuff as well as some areas here just to protect the machine so that paint chips aren't, you know, dropping into the oil areas, causing problems there. The change gears look great, no chips or nothing. I will have to source a change gear for metric. I don't have any, it didn't come any, or didn't, the machine didn't come with any. So the headstock looks great, no chips or anything of that nature. I am gonna have to adjust the spindle bearings as they do feel kind of loose, but gonna have to do a full cleaning of that, and I'll show that whole process. And then the ways, like I was talking about earlier, there's just a tiny bit of grooving there, if the camera would focus. So there's gonna be some wear on this. I mean, it was used for quite a while, probably up until the 90s, and it was made in 60, so it's gonna have wear. You can't prevent that with old machinery, but you can do some things to correct some of it sometimes. So we'll get into that, and we'll see how bad it really is. But thankfully there was no seized shafts and then no chipped gears in here. So still a lot of work to be done to this lathe, but overall pretty good. Now before I go, I'd like to say a special thank you to John Doak and Robin Doak up at MachineCo in Canada. I got the WMW Niles from them, the Kearney Trecker, the cast table, the press, and pretty sure that's it. But I got a couple machines from them, and they were a huge help. They helped with the shipping, and they also stored the machines while I was able to get some concrete poured, and they just held onto the machines way longer than they needed to. They're extremely generous, and I just really want to say thank you, a special thank you to them. So if you have any desire to get into machining, or you need any big massive equipment in terms of like powder coating booths, paint booths, they sell all sorts of craziness, please check out their website. I'll link it here and then down in the description and in the pinned comment. So please feel free to check them out. Now I hope that you got some enjoyment out of this video and are hopefully excited about what is coming on the channel. If you have any positive comments, negative comments, please put them down in the comment section and let me know what you think about all this. If you're excited about the machining and all that kind of stuff. So definitely some changes coming. I think they're good changes, and hopefully people learn something from it maybe, or just get a different way to think about something. So again, thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially if you want to see more machining content. And these aren't going nowhere, so don't think that I'm, you know, abandoning all the truck people. So thank you for watching if you've gotten to this point, and I will see you in the next video. Y'all have a blessed one.